What's up, everyone? I'm Liz Hunt.
I'm Chelsea Poppins.
And you are watching the Agency Rocket show. Or possibly listening to it. I don't know. It could be either one because we're on all the audio channels and YouTube and all the good stuff. So this is the Agency Rocket show, and we talk about the chaos of running a creative agency.
You are entering into our branding series, which is still going on. We just got done talking about when is it time to rebrand your business. If you're just starting to listen to our podcast, that's a really good one that we just got done with. Today, we will be talking about why storytelling is important to your brand and your business. So I think it's important to kind of set the tone of why storytelling matters in your business and your brand. For a lot of businesses, it can be a missing piece. I think sometimes your business starts as just transactional and then it kind of develops and you don't even realize your story, because even in some of our discovery meetings, we find the why for some people that they didn't even really realize was such a huge piece of their story. Storytelling, I think, is huge. You talk about it all the time, Liz, about the emotional connection of a strong brand. What are some other pieces of why storytelling is important to businesses, in your opinion?
Even jumping back a little bit further, I think you're so right. I think businesses, a lot of times, they kind of go in a couple different directions. They either have a super strong why for like, this is why we do this. They're very mission oriented and they have really strong core values, this really strong vision, really strong mission. But where they fall is being able to communicate it through their marketing, through their branding, through their messaging and stuff. Or they're just out to make money, which I am going to say it, I don't think is a bad thing. I think some people think that that's bad and evil, but I don't think it is.
We all got to pay our bills, guys.
Yeah,
we all got to pay our bills.
We all have to live, and we all know that money is what helps you do that. So I don't think that that's evil. But when it comes to branding and stuff, one of the things that really helps consumers with your branding and like creating a really memorable brand is being able to tell the story of your brand. Because, something that I think has been researched to the hilt is that people remember stories better than they remember pieces of information. It's that same thing of like, people remember how you make them feel more than they remember anything else about you. Right? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of that same idea. People are going to remember the story of your brand and how your brand makes them feel more than they're going to remember the features of your product, right? Like, well, they had this 9-volt battery included in the package and this one didn't. Like nobody remembers that kind of stuff. But they will remember, gosh, that place felt like so homey and cozy, and the customer service was top notch, and they just felt so inviting.
As opposed to the other array of emotions that you could evoke from a customer of pissing them off or making them feel unseen and unheard. And most people, if you think about your memories growing up as a kid, most of the memories that you actually remember are the ones that are tied to the most like extreme emotional state that you were in.
Yeah, for real. All the negative
or
trauma.
Positive.
Yeah. So I think in those cases, that's such a huge reason why storytelling in our branding matters so much, is simply because people are going to remember you better and they're going to remember you more versus your competitors, because you have a story to tell and people remember stories. It even goes back to like the ancient religions of our entire world. People remember them better because they are told through story form, right? Like they talk about how in Christian religion, Jesus tells parables, and he would talk about how he did that because people, one, were illiterate, they couldn't read. And then two, because people remember stories better than they remember pieces of information. And so it's just kind of like one of the oldest tricks in the book. And one of the things that we like to do is help our clients understand how to do that. How do you take a business with a brand and turn that into a story that can elicit that memory and that those good positive memories for consumers, right? So I think that's one thing that a brand story can really do for people.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Another thing is it helps you build that trust and relatability. A lot of times, if you just see a business on the street, on the side of someone's truck, you have no connection. You have no, like, the more something seems familiar, the more connected you are and more likely you are to remember and reach out to them and to be like, oh, I saw this emblem that I really liked or connected with, and I've seen it multiple times. They must be a reliable brand. And so you're more likely to call them and trust them for your business and whatever service that you need. And so I think that's another huge piece to it. Like, everyone thinks about, I know kids growing up, they trust things easily, but like, I know they know Nike. I know they know Gatorade. I know they know those top brands, and those are the ones that they're seeking out and they trust because they have seen them around, and they've probably seen some of their idols using Nike shoes or Adidas shoes or whatever, but their idols are doing it. So it's relatable, and they're like, they want to be just like them.
It's very true. And to that end, having all of that helps create that loyalty to your brand. So like some organizations, they can feel very transactional for you. There is this like idea behind them is like as little interaction as possible, as little humanizing as possible. There's like no personality to it, you know, and businesses like that make it feel like this is hardcore just a transaction for them. You are just a number on a spreadsheet to them, and they could care less about you as a person, as an individual, as anything, right? And I think when it comes to situations like that, that feels like they have no loyalty to me, and therefore I have zero loyalty to them. And so because of that, the flip side is true, right? If I don't feel like a number on a spreadsheet, and if I feel like, even if it's not true, if they are doing a good job of like creating this story of like inviting me into their brand and inviting me into the narrative that they've built, and I don't feel like a transaction to them, then I do, on that flip side, have loyalty to that brand, and I will buy more products from them, and I will love them and talk about them and be as a form of brand ambassador for them, like happily show off their products that I've purchased and things like that. I think that that's something to consider too whenever you're thinking about a brand story, because when we talk about a brand story, one of the things that you do for it is you build a story that is built around making the consumer, your customers, the hero of that story. And it's not about making yourself, the company, the hero. It's really about inviting your customers in to that narrative and allowing them to be either the hero or at least participants. You know, like they have to be at least the participants in the story. One of the things I think, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit on this. I know we're going to talk about mistakes that people have made, but I just am rolling. But one of the things that I've seen people do is like they put their history of like their family story on the back of their chip bags or the back of their, you know, packaging or whatever. And I just have to say, like, that's not your brand story, right? That's a good start, but it's not telling your brand story. Telling your brand story is like a way of life for your brand. It's like a way of being. It's the feeling that people get when they are brought into every interaction that they have with your brand.
It's the entire ecosystem.
Yes, that's such a good word. The ecosystem of your brand. Yes. And so it's like you have this narrative that invites the consumer in to be a part and allows them to play a very, very, honestly, like probably the most critical part of the brand, because they're the ones who are allowing you to have a company in the first place. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of one of the thoughts I have about just that brand story, is like making sure that you're not the hero that the consumer is.
No, I think that's great. I think, like you said, when businesses are in that transactional mode and less about the customer, they're not reaching their full potential. I think when brands actually grasp the power of storytelling and the power of evoking positive emotions throughout the entire experience and process with them, I think that's when they're really reaching the best of their ability. I think it's really impressive when you have like all these payment processing companies or Chase or like, I don't know, all these things that are very transactional, but they're able to still create an experience of like, we are here for you, no matter whether you're buying a house or no matter whether you're looking for insurance on this, like our customer service is here for you. We're trying to back you. Like they're able to create like an ecosystem that makes people feel comfortable, or they don't.
And it has the opposite effect.
Yeah. I mean, I think one things that come to mind, like examples, is like women's sports right now is huge. And the loyalty of customers to brands who are supporting women's sports is out of the water right now. And they are way more likely to support brands that support women than they are to support brands that are supporting men's sports, which is kind of like
interesting,
powerful and awesome. Nike is evoking stories from their customers who are these professional athletes who are also idols to younger generations, but they're sharing their stories through advertisement, through social media, through docuseries or any other type of things. Like it's really cool to see all these powerful women with these platforms who are in the limelight and they're utilizing them in order to story tell, like not Nike sharing their story. It's sharing stories of their hero, of their customer. And then through that, they're going to create that brand loyalty through the kind of like tiered customers, like everybody else who is looking up to these people.
Yeah. That's so interesting because like kind of what you're saying is, okay, Nike sells shoes, right? But what they're doing is they're giving other people platforms to speak whatever their truth is and to have their own stories. And it's not even like about Nike's shoes, even. It doesn't even feel like it's about Nike, even though like they are a part of that story, right? They're a part of this player's or athlete's story, but like, it's not even about Nike. It's about this player, right? And it's about this athlete. But Nike is okay with the fact that like the athlete is kind of the hero and they just get to be a part of it. And I think that is like a super, super powerful, almost like secret sauce to what Nike has been able to uncover with their brand story and the power that it holds. And it's basically like they have uncovered this ability to truly understand that they really don't have to be the hero. And they're allowing other people the platform that they are holding them up on. And I think that that is so beautiful. And it has worked incredibly well for them since they signed with Michael Jordan and they exploded. I just think that that's incredible that they do that and that they continue to do that. And the story is not just shoes. The story is social justice. And the story really is about humanity and people. And to me, that's the power of a good brand story. And I feel like that's what they've been able to accomplish with it.
And then the first time for the Super Bowl halftime show, that was the first time that Nike created an advertisement directly for women's sports, where they had like Asia Wilson and Caitlin Clark in there, and then a bunch of other women in sport for the first time in a very long time, putting money into that space. It was very well received by everybody across the board because not only are they just selecting customers with sharing their stories and personalizing their story of overcoming adversity, pushing boundaries, or redefining what strength looks like, not just as an athlete, but as a person. But they're picking people who align with their brand and the emotions that they want to evoke. They want to highlight Black women in sport, Asia Wilson. They want to highlight the Caitlin Clarks of the world who lead very humbly, but also are super powerhouses on the court statistically, and they hold themselves well. Like their values, their mission, and everything align. They're not just selecting people off a whim just because they might have a cool story. But it's very strategic and targeted.
I mean, and it sells. Like, it sells their product. Like, that's the thing that we have to remember is, like you're saying, it's not just a cool story. It actually sells products. Like, it actually makes them money too, because people are emotional beings. They connect to stories because stories carry that depth of emotion that humans love. People buy things because they have an emotional connection to it. I know we all like to think that we make logical decisions when making purchases, but it's not true at all. You make decisions based on emotion. And that is why we love Nike so much. That's why we buy Nikes and other things. It's because we have an emotional connection to it, right? And that's why Nike became so huge, because we all created some form of emotional connection to them because they created such a huge brand story that we all love.
I think another good example is Patagonia. They have a purpose-driven mission, saving the environment, and they really do a good job of inviting their consumers into that story and just being a part of it. And they do a really good job of storytelling throughout their ads and through their product descriptions and like activism alongside of it. So what they truly stand for, like the customers are the heroes because they're being a part of a company that's doing good. They treat their employees good and they stand for whatever their values are, just like the customers.
Yeah. The thing I love about Patagonia is like whenever you purchase something from them, it's almost like you're subscribing to their culture. It's like you subscribe to their values and their ideas and their mission, and kind of like what you're saying, it's like you're subscribing to their lifestyle. And to me, all those things are their story. It's their Patagonia culture, their lifestyle, their values, their all those things. That's all their brand story. That's just being told in all these different facets and, like you said, ecosystem of their brand. Right? It's all those different iterations of how we're telling our brand story and every different version of it that trickles down all the way down to social media captions and posts and ads that hit the consumer. And so when the consumer sees a social ad and then makes a purchase, they know that it's all hearkening back to the mission, the core values, and then ultimately the brand story that Patagonia has sold and like told. And so that's something I just think that they've done so well, is built this lifestyle of this Patagonia story. And I just think that when people purchase their products, it's like, yep, I'm subscribing to that. I'm subscribing to this culture. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I am
which
an
is
adventurer.
also why I don't own any. And that's kind of probably why, because like I'm not an outdoorsy, like I'm going to go hiking and go kill a bear or, you know, I don't know what people obviously, but it's like the Patagonia lifestyle is that story that people are subscribing to. And they've done such a good job of it. It's just so well told. And it's not overt. Like, it's not their family history on the back of a can or back of a t-shirt.
A pretzel.
Yes. Right? They're not like, you know, my family started this company back in 1865 and that's their brand story. No, their brand story is every iteration, every piece and message and design and everything that gets displayed from their organization. It is just everywhere. It's everything and it's everywhere. And I love it. They've done such a good job. I love it.
Yeah. I could come up with examples all day, like Dove and their women's campaign, to like Apple and how there's some of their ads bring in like their iPhones of like people taking quality images wherever they're at on their iPhone and just like being able to capture like the shot.
Yeah.
And share other people's stories.
That's interesting because to me, a campaign is different than a brand story. Don't you think? Like a campaign is a campaign. It's like a couple year long message that we want to say to get people to buy a certain product from us. To me, a brand story is something that never changes unless the very like core essential pieces of the brand change.
I think it's intertwined. Just like Nike's campaign of featuring athletes, and like if Apple's campaign is featuring iPhone users capturing moments, I think the brand story and the brand campaign are intertwined.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that brand story is going to change. Like we talked about Airbnb last time, just being that local spot in your neighborhood of where to stay. Then it became Airbnb. It belongs anywhere you need us to be.
Yeah.
Like I do think like it does change, obviously, but like I do think the campaign and the story, brand story, are very like gray area. It'd be like, together.
Yes. Okay. I love that you're saying this. I agree on some things you're saying, and yes, and like the Airbnb one, that to me felt like a brand campaign, which was they were telling the world who they were. They were saying, this is who we are. This is our brand. This is a campaign that is like a brand awareness campaign, right?
But they were tying in customer stories of using Airbnb. So they were still brand storytelling. Yeah.
Sure. That's fine. I mean, it's all still brand campaign, brand storytelling, all that stuff. Now, I do think Nike does a great job of carrying that thread of branding stuff all the way through. And I also think, I don't pay attention to all of Patagonia's campaigns, but I think they probably do too. Dove, however, I think that Dove campaign was a little bit of jumping on the like virtue signaling wagon. And to me, that was like, we make shampoo and, all these products. Oh, and also we're going to like be all for women and throw like a girl campaign. And then I feel like they've never gone back to that. It was just like a single campaign out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's never been like their brand. It was a singular campaign that was never like their brand. Does that make sense? So like it was a single campaign to like try to get
boost
people to
women
buy their product. Yes. To try to get people to buy their products by, trying to say that they love women and all this stuff.
But still to this day, even though I haven't necessarily seen any, I don't watch TV enough, seen more campaigns in that fashion where they're trying to like take all their makeup off or like more female forward. But I'm like, I still to this day like connect Dove to advocating for women. Even if that campaign had a time limit of what they were really pushing.
See, that's okay. So that's interesting because I feel like it was not authentic to their brand because they didn't stick to it. I feel like it was like a one-time campaign and then they went back to like just selling products to anybody and everybody, and they don't actually care about fighting for women's empowerment and all this stuff. It wasn't like a big part of who they are. Mm. You know what I mean? And all that to say, though, I do think that there are campaigns that you can have, ad campaigns that you can have that are very like brand specific campaigns, like what Nike does all the time and what Patagonia, I think, has everywhere. Even what Apple, like their Think Different, I think that is a brand campaign because it's who Apple is. They've always been that to their core. But I think there are other types of campaigns that are just advertising campaigns and they're just meant to sell products. And that's great. Like that's part of the business, like there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just more about defining types of things and defining what it is and what we're trying to do, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion.
I mean, it's interesting to hear that side of it too.
Yeah. To me, the storytelling, campaigns, and all that stuff, it has to be true to the narrative of who you actually are as an organization. Or it's just
and
another
not just a
ad.
Trend.
Yes, and not just a trend, not virtue signaling, not whatever it is. Like to me, Nike has a history of standing up for social justice and standing with athletes. And so them having a Super Bowl ad that is for female athletes, that's true to who they are because it is who they are, Like they signed Michael Jordan when no one else would do something like that, or, all those things. They have a history of that.
Yeah. Okay. So as we move along, what are some common mistakes that brands make with storytelling?
Well, like I've said earlier, the easiest one, just kind of low-hanging fruit, is the one of like just telling your history or like your family story and dropping it on your website, dropping it on the back of your packaging or something like that. And then saying, I've told my brand story. Honey, that's not your brand story. That's just a history lesson. Giving a brand story is about sharing with people who you are and what you're about, and a lifestyle and a culture, and allowing a place for people, for your customers, to have a platform to be participants in your organization. It's bigger than that. It's broader than that.
Yeah.
So
it's the entire culture.
Yeah. It's not a history lesson.
Yeah. I think another thing, and like we've talked about already, is if companies make themselves the hero, that they're swooping in and saving the customer, that's an issue we already kind of addressed.
Yeah.
You want to make that customer the hero of the story so that they can feel empowered to be a part of that story, and whatever you may be advocating for, whatever you stand for, whatever, how your business operates. And then I think another thing is we've talked about in one of our previous episodes is how to lace your brand into your social media. And we talk about like consistent messaging across all platforms, how to bring your brand into everything that you're creating, whether that's your emails, your newsletters, your social media, or how you're interacting with your internal team, not just your customers, like we talked about your entire ecosystem, but like, how are we talking to each other? How are we talking externally, and how are we being received? Those are other like things that I think companies can often underlook and not really think about, like, oh yeah, we stand for this and this, but we treat our employees bad and we don't give them the benefits that they deserve, or we have a lot of turnover. Like I think about Amazon and the amount of turnover that they have with their employees. Like I don't necessarily, Amazon's just easy. I'm not sitting here saying I stand for what their values are, but like there's so much turnover, and I have friends that have worked for Amazon, and they just really like, their main thing is to churn and burn and get customers things as fast as possible and be efficient. And they're not necessarily huge advocates for their own people. And they got into trouble with that, I think, in the last couple of years too. It backfired on them. But yeah. So like, sorry, I got off the rails. We were talking about consistent messaging, but yeah.
Fine. We do what we want here, Chels.
Are there any other mistakes that come to mind for you?
Sort of more of just like a tip, maybe, is just remember that consumers like to feel like they're in control. And so when you are building anything, doing anything, pushing out marketing content, pushing out products, pushing out the brand, all that kind of stuff, building a brand, make it so that you are building an infrastructure that allows consumers to have choices, but not too many choices because that's overwhelming, but allow them to have choices that give them a sense of power. And you said it earlier, empowerment, but like gives them a sense of power and control in your environment, And so I think making them feel good about choosing you and making them feel good about your company, and doing that in ways that's like just every version that you can think of. Like a brand story doesn't start and end with visuals and copywriting. It starts there, but then there's always customer service and operations and policies and protocols and presentation of your buildings. And, there's so many pieces to what a customer expects and learns about your organization that they take in when they interact with you. And those are all parts of the brand. Just remember that those are all opportunities for you to curate a good story, a good brand, and a customer for life. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
And to kind of like tie it into like us as an agency, or if you're a freelancer or creative listening, I think that goes back to, we've talked about our discovery process time and time again of how we ask a million questions to pull out our client's story and the origin of their business. And then we ask other questions that help them identify who their customer is, what they're looking for, key demographics, and all these other different things. And our discovery workshop is 2 to 3 hours long for a reason, because we are assessing our client from all sides, from their side, their point of view, to the customer's point of view. And then we're able to craft our logo, our palette, our stylescape, our messaging, the keywords that really describe this brand, and our mild, mediums, and spicy. And from there, we're able to actually like get our designers, get our internal team all on the same page in order to creatively drive whatever we're coming up with. But yeah, it's really cool. So if you need help brand storytelling, hit us up. We would love to do your brand, or we'd love to do some consulting for you if you have any questions or anything.
Yeah.
But Liz, anything you want to add?
No, this is great. Great job, Chelsea.
Woo! Go J Cloud. Go Liz. But yeah, if you like this podcast, please like, share, follow. If you have any examples of brands doing great storytelling that you love, please share. We would love to hear any feedback or input. And yeah, have a great day.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye, 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 bye.